What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Next Gen Geek channel. I'm your host Darius, and in this video we have quite a bit to talk about. I was inspired by a video by Podcast Now. So yeah, Podcast Now, you inspired me to do this. I'm going to be talking about my top 5 superhero games that we need. And I'm not going to say any more, we're just going to jump right into it. These are games that I have always wanted and we never really got. Almost every single one of these games I'm about to mention, we never really got. And I think these are games that really deserve their moment to shine. And the first game we're going to be talking about that needs to happen, in my opinion, is Doctor Strange. Yes, you heard that right. Doctor Strange deserves to have his own game. It's about time, guys. It's about time that the mystical and magical aspect of the Marvel Universe comes to video game form. So for me, I think Doctor Strange will be that perfect character for us to introduce, for really developers and really Marvel to introduce gamers to the mystical side of the Marvel Universe. Not only that, but to me, Doctor Strange should be a single-player open-world RPG game, relatively in the same realm of like the Arkham series and Spider-Man by Insomniac. And of course, what I'm about to say should take place in New York City. Hands down, takes place in New York City. However, we should be able to go to another realm. But now, instead of actually physically going to another realm, such as the Dark Dimension, which is probably the biggest and most popular dimension that we all know, and that even MCU fans probably know of. However, it shouldn't be directly. And what I mean by that is, I think the developer that I will soon mention at the end of Doctor Strange should implement this aspect. And if you're familiar with the game called The Medium on Xbox, I really like what they're doing, where it's like you sort of interchange between the two worlds, and how if you go into the other world, you now have more to do, and there's things that it's like now you have access to a whole different area. So I think if this developer can play around with something like that in an open world setting for Doctor Strange, where we can switch between regular New York City and then Dark Dimension New York City, and how Dark Dimension New York City looks all creepy and muddy, and maybe we get access to new areas, I think that would be absolutely amazing. Not only that, but also the DLC can actually be quite interesting. Like I said before, this game can introduce us to the mystical side of the Marvel Universe. So I think overall, the narrative-wise, I think Dormammu should be the main villain, maybe with a bit of Nightmare, and even, of course, villain quests, as I'm going to get into that further in this video, where these villain quests are sort of mini-stories that we take on a big villain, and it's still a cinematic experience, as we all know from the Spider-Man and Arkham games. So that's one of the things of Doctor Strange. I think a Doctor Strange game would be absolutely amazing. You can do a lot with his powers, and I can't wait to see what, Remedy Games could probably do with this. Yes, Remedy Games is the developer I'm choosing for this, and to be honest, I always imagined Remedy Games, but then when Evan Flarka started going on Twitter and really being like, hey, yes, I was like, yes, finally, I'm not the only one. So yeah, Remedy Games, because what's interesting about Remedy Games, they create absolutely breathtaking, beautiful worlds and concepts, and really try to give it their own spin to it. I really enjoyed Control. I thought there was I love the levitation, how you have one weapon and it transforms. So I think they can definitely play around with some of that with Doctor Strange. So I think Remedy Games would definitely be an interesting choice, if not the choice I would want to do Doctor Strange. Now, on to my next superhero that we all probably know. He was supposed to get a game early, years before, got canned. And again, this is a character I absolutely adore from DC Universe. This is the character I connect with. And if you're not aware of who this character is I'm about to mention, that is Superman. Yes, the Man of Steel himself, the House of L, Kal-El, Clark Kent. Superman should be getting his own game already, in my opinion. And for me, open world action adventure similar to the Arkham games. If anything, take place in the actual Arkham universe. However, I can understand why a Superman game is going to be hard to make and why it's hard to get off the ground. And I think one of those elements is really going to be the flight mechanic. Not a lot of people have done a proper flight mechanic in years. So it's going to be interesting how, if a Superman game does come about, how is flight going to be introduced? How's all of these elements going to be introduced? And I think for me, one of I think the story I would want in a Superman game is to have Lex one of the villains. He's gonna be one of the villains, right? And then you introduce Brainiac. I think Brainiac would be an excellent villain for Superman to go up against, as you can do a lot with the story of Brainiac in the worlds he conquered and kept in bottles, and maybe at the end you have two different decisions to save Argo City or not save Argo City and destroy Brainiac. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic. Maybe Lex takes over Brainiac's ship and becomes the next Brainiac. And not only that, but I think I add in another extra villain just to spice things up a bit, and that's Mongol. And we're going to get into Mongol. Let's face it, Mongol's he's a big dude, you know? He's a big dude, he can take you on. And I would love to see Mongol in a Superman game as well. Not only that, you know, as I said, open world should be Metropolis, opposite of Gotham, bright, colorful, hopeful, the usual aesthetic that we expect to see in Metropolis. Now, I mentioned Villain Quest before in Doctor Strange, and I want to get a bit deeper into this for Superman, as Superman is one of my favorite superheroes of all time. Again, one of them. I love a lot of superheroes. So the idea for what I have for Villain Quest is mainly that it's a post-game, it introduces post-game narrative options. And essentially these are mini storylines. Roughly, I ideally would want 4 to 5 hours of a meaty storyline of a dedicated villain that you take on. And of course at the end when you take him on, is in a really cinematic, epic way. And I think doing Villain Quest and having a dedicated set of number that you can just tackle, right? And these things, it's going to take a while, you know. I would want the gamer to be fully immersed in this world, and they have to sometimes do things themselves. And again, some of the Villain Quests I think would absolutely be amazing, or maybe even introduce some of the real world things that you can do in the game, and it integrates into a Villain Quest. So I think Metallo would be a great option. Parasite, Mongol, Manchester, Toyman, Atomic Skull, Bloodsport. There's so many villains that Superman has that you can do so many unique things as far as a villain quest line, in my opinion. And of course, with every superhero game, you pretty much have a base of operations. So Spider-Man is pretty much New York City. He can be anywhere he swings. He doesn't really have a dedicated one. It's NYC in general. So I think Superman would have the Fortress of Solitude. It just makes sense. Batman has the Batcave. Superman has the Fortress of Solitude, and within there you can change your outfits, you can do your little training or whatever it may be, the usual stuff you would expect from a Superman game, most likely. Not only that, but also I think there will be, just like how Spider-Man has a living, breathing world where you can interact with civilians and you can actually take on these warehouses and take them out. I think Superman should have something like that. And I think introducing the Intergang can definitely help with that. And when you fight the Intergang in the very beginning, they're actually pretty weak. They're not as powerful. But as you progress through the story, as you progress through the narrative, they actually get more powerful and more difficult. They use apocalyptic weapons on you, as well as kryptonite. So now it's like, okay, they have all this kryptonite, and as Superman, you need to take them out. You need to take the kryptonite out, send them to somewhere else, either Argo, Star Labs, back to the Fortress, whichever it may be. You can clear them all out, just like in Spider-Man, and you know, I think that would be great. And you know, every time you take out another Intergang, you get closer and closer and closer to Bruno Mannheim, you know? So I think that would be absolutely interesting to do. And of course, you're probably wondering, what about DLC? Honestly, I don't think, at first I was like, maybe you can include DLC such as Argo City as another world that we can explore. Let's say, hey, you can now explore Argo City, Supergirl's maybe in there, you have quests in Argo. Maybe you can even do a Legion of Superhero storyline. Or instead, ideally, just do a sequel and introduce Legion of storyline, or the next adaptation of a famous Superman story, like Deaths of Superman, for example. So again, there's a lot they can do. I personally I really want a Superman game. Like, it's time. It's time we get a Superman game. And you're probably wondering what developer would I want? Well, because I said I wanted to be set in the Arkham universe, I would want Rocksteady to do this. We've heard rumors years ago that they were supposed to do a Superman game, but now they're doing Suicide Squad, which I'm still excited for that game. But again, I think Superman would have been a better option. Now, on to the next game I want to talk about, and that's going to be a fighting game, right? I'm a big fighting game fan. If you guys don't know much about me, I love fighting games. I love Injustice. I love Tekken, Soul Calibur. I still play the old ones. So I think for me, I would really like to see a Marvel fighting game. We already have DC. We already have the Injustice franchise, as I said before. But Marvel hasn't really had, you know, the last fighting game franchise they had was Marvel vs. Capcom. And we all know how that ended. MVCI was not really that loved and well received. So I think if they went to a different publisher, a different developer, and I'll get into that a bit later, I think it will help them out. And for me, I would want an Avengers vs. X-Men fighting game. You heard that right. Straight up adapt that storyline. 2 different endings. You have the Avengers side, X-Men side. You get decided. You can be sided on either one. However, I would not want it to be a side-scrolling fighting game like Injustice or Marvel vs. Capcom. Instead, make it more 3D based in the realm of Soul Calibur and Tekken. I think it will be much more beneficial. It can definitely differentiate a Marvel fighting game from a DC fighting game, and I think there's going to be a lot more they can do as far as that. Now, one of my favorite elements of Injustice is stage transitions. I think if Avengers vs. X-Men can introduce that in their own unique way, I think that would be absolutely phenomenal. And one of the ideas I had in mind is you introduce something still similar to a back 3 in Injustice that does an automatic stage transition when you're in the area that the stage transition activates, right? Or just through regular combos, you automatically have one, right? And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, an example, right? You're fighting on a helicarrier, you're a Hulk, you're fighting, let's say, Colossus, you're going at each other, then all of a sudden the Hulk knocks Colossus off the helicarrier all the way down, and you're in NYC, right? Helicarrier is high above NYC, you crash down into Times Square, and boom, there you are. Fight again, keep going, right? I want that dynamic. I want it to be high energy all the way through. Not only that, but think of it again. Let's say you're in Wakanda, you're Black Panther, and you're fighting, let's say, freaking, I don't know, Moon Knight, right? You're on, like, a Wakandan palace, you knock him off, now you're on a moving train. Now, on this moving train, you have 2 different options. You can either continue fighting, you can knock someone off the train, and now you're into a jungle stage, or you stay on the train, you're still fighting, right? And you get to a vibranium mine, right? And now you're fighting in the vibranium mine, and all the purples around you and everything like that. And so if you knock someone off the train this time, now you're fighting in a vibranium mine. Again, I want it to be dynamic, really action-packed, really go in there. And of course, I would want mechanics similar to Soul Calibur in some way, shape, or form, maybe. Like I said, stages you can do, absolutely amazing. And now, we're going to get into the roster, and I think this is a game where initially I was like, I want a big roster in the beginning. I want 40 characters in total. 20 on the Avengers side, 20 on the X-Men side. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't think that's realistic. If anything, maybe 13 to 15 on each side. It's pretty low. Maybe 15 on each. That way you have a total of 30 characters. 15 characters on Avengers, 15 in X-Men. And you just have DLC characters that you can include over time. You know, something along those lines. I don't want customization. Not like Injustice 2. I don't want any of that. All abilities should be there. Just straight up, let me pick my character, change my outfit if I want to, and just play, right? And so you're probably wondering, what developer would I want for this game? For me, I would go with Project Soul. Project Soul, in my opinion, I think they're one of the developers that can make a dynamic, fast-paced, action-packed fighting game in the 3D realm. You know, I love Soul Calibur. I love how you can move throughout the level. You have to, like, do all of this and really act fast, get in, that sort of thing. Yes, you can do that in side-scrolling, but I think 3D would help differentiate Marvel's fighting game compared to Injustice. And of course, I would also want a tag mode. I think tag mode is a staple in a Marvel fighting game from Marvel vs. Capcom. So if anything, try to implement it in this one. If not, that's perfectly fine, in my opinion. To me personally, I could just think about it like, you know, I'm Captain America, I'm fighting someone, I knock someone in the air, then I transition, then I tag Winter Soldier in, and I get my vibranium arm and I knock him, and that activates the stage transition. That would be freaking epic. That's just my opinion. On to my next game I would want. It is not a Marvel property. It is not a DC property. It is an Image property, and that is Spawn. Yes, I would want a Spawn video game. Have it. At first, I was like, I want an open world, but the more I thought about it, I don't want an open world Spawn game. Instead, make it a straight up linear narrative. If it's open world, cool. If not, I'm perfectly fine with it. I would want it to be just a straight up linear narrative with crazy cinematics, because I think the world of Spawn is so visually amazing, from Spawn's physical outfit and what you can do to the world. And maybe, let's say you die, right, in the game, and instead of automatically restarting, you have to actually go through hell to get back up. That would be crazy. Maybe different places to travel. Again, I think I would really want this just to be a straight up linear narrative, action RPG, something along those lines, crazy abilities. And you're probably wondering, okay, you're mentioning all this stuff, Darius. Who would you want to develop? I would want Kojima Productions. Yes, I think Kojima Productions can make an interesting Spawn game visually, narratively, and everything like that. I think Spawn's the right property. If there's going to be any comic book character I would want Kojima to handle, I think Spawn is the right one. I think they can do wonderful things with Spawn. I love Spawn. I think he deserves his own game as well. Now, the next game, superhero team, really, that I would want, it needs to be a game, and to be honest, this is one of my other dream superhero games. My first one was a DC fighting game. That was Injustice. Happy with that. Even though I still want my Static. Still want my Static Shock. But I digress. Yes. So the next game I would want is a Teen Titans game. Yeah, podcast now, you beat me to it. But I'm going to discuss my Teen Titans game. This part is actually going to be quite lengthy, because I have a lot to talk about. Because Teen Titans, to me, they're one of my favorite superhero teams of all time. Teen Titans got me into comics. DC got me into comics. I started comics really in the animation side, where I watched Batman, the animated series, Justice League Unlimited, Justice League, the animated series, the Legion of Superheroes, Teen Titans, all of that. And Teen Titans really was close to me because these were young kids that were trying to get along and doing their own thing, trying not to be sidekicks. And trying not to be in the shadow of their mentors. And I love characters like Starfire, Raven, Nightwing, Beast Boy, Cyborg, Kid Flash. Like, I love all of them. Teen Titans. If there's any superhero team that I am a huge fan of, I've read pretty much most of the comics, if not all of them. Like I said, I love Teen Titans. It's the Teen Titans. And the show is not doing it for me. But anyway, yes, a Teen Titans game. And if anything, I would probably want to fuse it with a bit of Young Justice. And I'll get into more of that. For me, this Teen Titans game should have a dynamic world, right? You should be able to explore San Francisco in its full, interact with all the civilians, opens quest lines among those lines. Titan's Tower should be the base. You should be able to go top to bottom through Titan's Tower. Be on the top as Nightwing, and let's say you just jump off and start gliding around. You should be able to just practice your escrima tosses, whatever it may be. I want this to be a fully explored, fully fleshed out San Francisco and Titan's Tower and Teen Titans game. Right now, I know a lot of people want single player games. Don't get me wrong. I want single player superhero games as well, which is why Superman single player, Spawn single player, all these things. But I do love my co-op, and I do love multiplayer on occasion. And for me, when I think of a team superhero game, I ideally picture it as a co-op game in the realm of Marvel's Avengers. Now, not Marvel's Avengers in its live service aspects, but just that idea of introducing co-op elements. Now, however, even though I want it to be co-op, it should not be a live service. No gear system, no grinding, nothing like that. Very similar to Gotham Knights now. It looks like how they're approaching it. Again, we don't know much about Gotham Knights, but from the sounds of it, I something similar to that, right? I would want it to be 4 players. However, this is where I would change things up. in the first part of the narrative, right? In the narrative, I'm thinking is that the main villains would be Hive. So we get Hive, we get Queen Bee, and the story revolves around the Titans trying to rescue captured and experimented metahumans from Hive and Queen Bee. That's what I would want to do. And the reason why I'm going this route is because I would want you as the player to actually form the team, to get everyone together. I would have the founding members, for me personally, the original founding members, or change things up a bit. I would want Kid Flash, Nightwing, Aqualad, and Wonder Girl. Now, however, as much as I love Aqualad, the regular Gar, I personally would want to go with Calderon. I personally love Calderon and Young Justice. I loved his arc in Season 2. And I think there's a lot you can do with that basic power set of a bit of the hydrokinesis and electricity power. So that's what I would want to do. And you're probably wondering, what about Raven Starfire? I'm getting there. Don't worry. I'm getting there. But yes, I would want Hive, Queen Bee. But you also have characters like Deathstroke that do appear. I still want the focus to be on the metahumans and trying to rescue them. But Deathstroke does pop up and he is an agent for Hive. And so what I want to do is introduce villains that teases either DLC or the sequel, such as Terra and maybe the Deathstroke family, like with Jericho. Like that would be crazy to just think about, or just massive DLC expansion. Now the reason why I'm saying I would want those characters first, oh, and Speedy, my bad, Speedy too, right? So Nightwing, Kid Flash, Aqualad, Wonder Girl, and Speedy. I would introduce those four. However, I would approach a bit of the first part, purely single player, and it's just you. Because at some point, I do think it'll be interesting that the team breaks up at some point. And now you as Nightwing still, or really now you are Nightwing, and you're like, I need the team back together, just going down. Now you're at like Titan's Tower, you're at the base. You're at the base of operations, and you're trying to see, okay, who's out there that I can recruit or something like that. And so let's say there's something's going on at like, I don't know, a mountain area or forest area, and this magical side of things, and that's where we get Raven. You rescue Raven, now you unlocked Raven, and you can test her out, play her, do her training. Now it's like she's part of the team, right? Next thing, all of a sudden, Tamaranian soldiers are coming down, Starfire's there, you gotta save Starfire, Coriander, you do that, she's unlocked. Do your narrative now, and now Cyborg, who is actually being experimented on by Queen Bee, because let's say Silas Stone went to Queen Bee trying to, save his son, that sort of thing. Now you have Cyborg, right? Same thing with Beast Boy. Maybe he was being experimented on, and now he's there. Now you save both of them. Now you have the new Titans. So in the beginning, it's going to be the founding members or whoever, the characters would be there. And then you have the new Titans, and then the old members start coming back in slowly. So now you have a nice, good roster that you can just interconnect. And of course, I would want this to be a 4-player co-op game. Absolutely, right? Villain quest lines, I touched upon that. So villains you can include is like Simon, Clarion, the Witch Boy, Sportsmaster, Mammoth, Brother Blood, Madam Rogue, Gizmo, Cinderblock, Jinx, Blackfire, Fearsome 5. There's so many Titans villains that you can include. I would absolutely love. Now you're probably thinking about, okay, Darius, you talk about all this, you're really going in, how would you want the combat? This is where I'm a bit mixed, because as much as I love the Arkham and Spider-Man combat system, I do enjoy probably a bit more the Marvel's Avengers combat, and I mainly like that slightly more, mainly because I feel, to me, to a certain extent, it feels like there's more combos you can do, right? You can switch between weapons, you have your dedicated abilities, and sometimes in your ability section you can change how it actually operates. So this is why I'm a bit torn, because it's like I would want something like that, but still that amazing ferocity and the fluidness of the Arkham and Spider-Man game combat. Again, it's a weird mix. If I had to choose maybe Avengers with the abilities, you can change abilities, you can be Nightwing, you can switch between a Scrimma and Staff, you can be Starfire, have your blasters. It's weird because I'm not entirely too sure. I think Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales introduced a way to include the powers into combat, where you hold down, let's say, your power ability, and then you press a regular attack button, and now it's different, you can combo. So maybe in the realm of that, but I'm not entirely too sure because all these characters, they should play differently. So that's essentially what I would want in a Teen Titans game. Again, I'm a Teen Titans fan. If anything, not live service, but treat it more as in you can have expansions, you can introduce new characters like Superboy, Miss Martian, Arsenal, Red Robin, Blue Beetle, and of course, I'm going to keep saying that Static Shock, because Static should be in everything. No, but seriously, like, I think a Teen Titans game, that's my dream game. I want it to happen. Open world. Oh, and if you're thinking about traversal, Nightwing, you can either glide, grapple, and swing, or call upon your bike. Or, if you're, let's say, Beast Boy, you can either double jump, and now you're a Falcon, and you can fly. Starfire, you can fly. You can fly super speed. Raven, she can levitate or teleport. Cyborg, not too sure about him. If you want to get corny, introduce the Teen Titans car. Just the corny side of things. Not too sure about Cyborg. Or, and even Aqualad. Maybe Aqualad has like water levitation he can use, that sort of thing. Let's say you're Aqualad and you have like 2 weapons. You're going to do your attacks with weapons. Switch to the whips. The water whips, and you can do a bunch with that. Again, I like the combo system of Avengers a lot, which is why I'm like a bit torn. Maybe I might go more towards the Avengers route. I'm not too sure. Again, not a lot of people like Avengers, understandable, but I do like the combat. It is engaging for me. It is fun. There's new things I discover almost all the time sometimes. So again, I would want a Teen Titans game. I want it to be fully fleshed out, fully lived in. I talked about villain quest lines before. That would be absolutely amazing. So those are the top 5 superheroes I think deserve to get a game, and those are the reasons and developers I would want behind each of these games. Oh, and I forgot, you're probably wondering who you want to develop Teen Titans. Because Gotham Knights looks really good as what it is, I probably would want WB Games Montreal. Probably. That's right now my number 1 pick. But yeah, anyway, if you guys like this video, if you guys agree, what other superheroes do you want as video games? Let me know in the comments down below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to stay up to date and just, you know, I'm about to be putting out more content, Mortal Kombat. Stay tuned for that. I will be doing a review of that movie, and it's going to release the day after my video will be released on the 24th. I'm seeing it on the 23rd in IMAX, so I'm very excited for the Mortal Kombat movie. I already got my tickets. My friends got theirs. We all going together. We're going to have some fun. So yeah, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're up to date on all future content on the Next Gen Geek channel. And before we go, I want to make some honorable mentions. So I apologize if I look over to the side. I have notes. One of them, Wonder Woman. Honestly, hack and slash. I want to feel like a goddess. I think Platinum Games would do a great job with a Wonder Woman game. Next up, Thor. I would want a Thor game. Different Realms. Ideally, Santa Monica Studios. However, I don't think that would really happen because it's a Sony developer. So, again, not too sure about that one. And, of course, Black Panther. I would want a Black Panther game. Open world, massive, beautiful, so much to do. The villain quest lines, as I told you guys before. If I had to choose what developer, ideally, probably Naughty Dog. Realistically, maybe Crystal. I think Crystal would do a better Black Panther game than an Avengers game, mainly because they're now focused back on that single player aspect and they can do more. And I think Black Panther is a good choice for them, considering their reputation from the Tomb Raider games, at least the first 2. I know the third one wasn't everyone's favorite Tomb Raider game, but I think they would do something interesting possibly. Next up, Green Lantern game. I'm not sure about the developer, however, I do want it to be intergalactic space travel. Probably someone from EA, maybe BioWare, but at the same time, I don't want BioWare touching any franchises I love. So with Green Lantern game, I'm not too sure. However, I do think puzzle heavy would be interesting, and you have to use the ring to do the puzzles. And again, there's so many characters I would want. I really wanted to do at least the top 5. I know Teen Titans was probably the biggest one I talked about, second to maybe Superman, because those 2 characters, they need their games. It's great that we're getting Gotham Knights, but Teen Titans, that's what I want. So I'll see you guys in the next video.